The first general deep dive session on technology today is on AI Center, the ability to make your robots smarter and the ability to automate more and more processes. For this session, I have Anton, Director of Product Management, talking you through AI Center capabilities.
Thank you, Tejas. Hi, everybody. My name is Anton McGonnell. I'm a product manager at UiPath for AI Center. Today, I'm going to talk to you about what AI Center is and all of the new and exciting stuff that we're doing and how you can use AI Center to automate more by adding AI to your automations. So first, what do we mean by the combination of RPA and AI? Really, what AI enables RPA to do is to automate more. So if you think about traditional RPA, it enables you to get data or interact with data in lots of different and interesting ways, such as UI automation and interacting with APIs. But it can't do a lot of things that require understanding unstructured data or semi-structured data. And that data can come in the form of videos, it can come in the form of images, of text, of audio, and also RPA can't make complex decisions, and it needs AI to support it to make complex decisions. So whenever you think about AI and RPA and their combination, really, it is incredibly synergistic because RPA is the delivery vehicle that is able to interact with data in these different forms, and AI can help it by interacting with more complex data and making more complex decisions. Based on the research we've gathered, 80% of organizations that deployed RPA are going to introduce AI by 2022. So that just shows how RPA is such a good delivery vehicle and gateway into using more complex AI. 74% of AI adopters believe AI will be integrated into all applications by 2023. Now, we believe that RPA is the way that you integrate applications, and thus RPA as a delivery vehicle for AI is in our belief, inevitable. And RPA developers are the people who will actually end up bringing AI to these enterprise applications because they are building the emulation layer on top of these enterprise applications. And finally, executives believe, and I think this is something universally understood because it's something that is talked about so prevalently, is that executives believe that AI is enabling them to move ahead of competition. So not integrating AI is going to leave your company behind or leave your customers behind. And if you think about the challenges of bringing AI to businesses, which is obviously well documented over the past number of years, this is again why these technologies are so synergistic, because RPA really is that delivery vehicle for AI. Now, why AI Center? And why did we build AI Center? What AI Center gives you the ability to do is take a machine learning model, whether that be the vast range of models that we provide out of the box that you can train and deploy, whether it's a model that you've developed within your own data science organization that you want to add to RPA workflows and you want to upload to AI Center, or whether you are working with a UiPath partner and they have some particular custom model that is of use to you, and you can also make use of those via AI Center. So really, any sort of model is able to be put onto AI Center, and then the entire life cycle of that model can be managed. So whenever the model is available, maybe you'll train it, or maybe the model will come already trained, and you can just deploy it directly. Whenever that model that is now in a deployed state, and that's what we call an ML skill. Whenever that is available, then an RPA developer can drag and drop that ML skill into their workflow in Studio, and they can build in human-in-the-loop activities to that workflow, so that whenever the robot makes a prediction, but the prediction isn't of a high confidence, so the ML skill isn't confident that the prediction it's making is correct, the RPA robot can pass that prediction to a human to validate, and then that validation can be used to retrain the model and continuously improve it. So what you have is a continuously improving system for that's entirely generic for any use case in which you're using these AI models within your workflows. You're able to improve those models so that they get smarter and that they change and evolve as real world data changes and evolves. So the four key pillars in terms of functionality within AI Center are the ability to deploy the models, the ability to consume the models from within your Studio workflow and from the robots, the ability to manage the entire life cycle of the models, and, as I said, to continuously improve, train and improve these models over time. So starting with deploy, as I said, you can bring your own machine learning models. We provide a standard contract in which to do that. So if you've created one, or if your internal data science team has created one and they've given it to you to add to your RPA workflows, all you need to do is follow our very standard contract, which is based on Python wrappers for serving and for training the models. And you can find out more information in our documentation section of our docs website on how to do that. But probably more importantly, we offer over 25 models that are available out of the box that really open up hundreds of use cases. And I'll dive into those in a minute. Whenever you've chosen what model you need for your work, for your particular use case, then it's as simple as choosing that model, creating an ML package, and then deploying that ML package as an ML skill. Now, in terms of the models we provide out of the box, we have a wide range. There's multiple sessions over the course of DevCon and document understanding, so I won't touch too much on that, but AI Center is the place you go to find all of your document understanding models. Whenever you are doing more complex templateless document classification and extraction use cases, that's when you'll need the machine learning models that are running on AI Center. There are some exciting new models coming, such as a contracts model to be able to extract entities from contracts and passports and ID cards. So I'm sure you'll be learning about that over the course of the conference. But then we also have a collection of more generic models for generic tasks, particularly for interacting with unstructured data. So, for instance, text classification is a very common one, where you'll use the robot to gather text either from maybe emails, from websites, and then you want to classify that text so that the robot knows where to route it and how to deal with it. We have a collection of language models. We have an NER model that allows you to extract entities from a corpus of text, sentiment analysis. And then into language comprehension, we have question answering model that allows you to pass in a large piece of text and then ask the robot questions about that text. Model for determining how similar two texts are. So if one passage and another passage are passed into the robot, the ML skill will tell you how similar they are, which is really useful for things like contract clauses. Summarizing text, so summarizing a large corpus of text into a much more concise summary. And then we have a collection of image models. So image moderation, for example, if you are moderating content and you want to scan images for explicit content before you open it, or anybody in your organization opens it, we have a model that will be able to assess how explicit the content within an image is. Object detection, which allows you to train a model and customize a model so you can detect custom objects within a model, such as in insurance evidence cases. If you are collecting evidence for an insurance claim, the robot is able to grab those from attachment in an email and then detect, for instance, if there is damage to a car. And an image classifier, which is similar to object detection, but just classifying the image as opposed to the objects within the image. We then have models for making predictions on structured data. So think of these as the robots making decisions, both classification and regression. In the case of classification, the model is going to take an input, such as the details about a customer, and then it can predict whether that customer will churn or not. In the case of regression, maybe you want to assess housing prices, and so you pass in details about housing prices in a particular area, and the model is able to, once trained, is able to predict what the price should be for this particular house. We then have a model for time series forecasting, and as mentioned earlier, you can bring any model to AI Center just by uploading it based on our standard contract. So now I'm going to deep dive into a couple of models in particular, starting with text classification, because this is one we see loads of interest in. So how do you use this model? Basically, what you'll do is you will take a collection of samples that you want to make predictions on in the future. Let's say it's emails. So you can collect all of your historical emails for customer complaints, and then you assign categories to these. So maybe some of them are for loan approvals, maybe some of them are credit card queries, maybe some of them are complaining about the level of customer service. And then you can pass that in a simple CSV, upload it to AI Center, train your model, and then that model can be deployed and you can use it to make those predictions. And if you think about all of the use cases that you can use this model for, like filtering resumes that are coming into your system through various means, such as just via emails or via various systems like LinkedIn. If you want to evaluate product reviews on a website or some internal system to see what people are saying about your products, or in many cases, even your competitors' products. If you want to automatically classify and create IT service tickets whenever you get some customer issue that comes in, and so on. This is really an incredibly powerful model that's really, really easy to use. You don't need to have loads of AI knowledge or deep data science expertise. All you need to be able to do is collect data, label that data in a CSV, upload it to AI Center, train the model, and then you'll see how well the model performs, because we'll give you evaluation metrics such as confusion matrix. So you can see, without even having to understand the deep statistical underpinnings of a particular evaluation, you'll be able to understand how well the model performs. And then you'll be able to add human in the loop to whenever you deploy that model to continuously improve it. As I mentioned earlier, our classification and regression models can be thought of as really generic ways of doing something like AutoML in a super simple way. So if you think about, as I mentioned, classification earlier, there are so many ways in which you can use that model to allow the robot to make predictions on things like customer churns, on loan defaults, on living expense classification. Regression, similarly, is whether it's classification is classifying categories. Regression is basically going to output some numerical score that's linear. And you can use that to do things like budget optimizations, inventory management, customer lifetime value prediction. So many, even one model in and of itself can open up so many potential use cases. And again, similarly, object detection, as I mentioned earlier, using it to troubleshoot product issues, to determine vehicle types, analyze your plate numbers in your cars, detect counterfeit packaging. These are real use cases that our customers use these models for. And again, super easy to interact with this model because you can simply deploy the model, take pictures, label those, and then retrain the model in AI Center and automate the whole human-in-the-loop experience. Now, for consuming the model, for those of you who haven't used AI Center before, it's super easy to add your models into your RPA workflow. So once you've deployed the model as an ML skill in AI Center, and as long as your robot is connected to the appropriate tenant, then you just need to get the ML services package from the managed activity feed in the official feed in Studio. Once you have those activities, you'll see something called ML skill. You drag and drop that into your workflow. You hit the drop-down box and you'll see all of the ML skills available on that tenant for you to use within your workflow. And you can test those just by clicking the test button to send some samples to see what sort of predictions you're getting back. Now, when that model that ML skill is actually being used in production, you're able to see how it's being used. So you'll be able to see things like the number of predictions made. You'll be able to view all of the data sets and the ML packages. So if you're continuously training and improving that ML skill, you'll have loads of different versions of the ML package, because you create a new ML package every time you train a new version of that ML skill. And you'll have full audit trail of all of those ML packages and all of the data sets used to train the models via the AI Center application. And it's super easy. I'm going to show you some new features we have for better model management as well. And then continuously improving. And this really is the key differentiation. This is the biggest value enabler of AI Center, is using our platform, the combination of long-running workflows, of Action Center, of all our different experiences for users interacting with robots, like validation station for documents, like forms for simple static forms, and then new capabilities like apps, which allow users to interact with robots. All of these capabilities mean that you're able to have humans actually validate the predictions that the ML skills make, and then the robot passes those validations back to AI Center as new training data. And then you can automatically schedule new training jobs, so that maybe every week, when all of the new validations for that week have come in, you train a new version of that ML skill on some sort of timeline that you define, and then you can automatically deploy that ML skill again. And I'll show you an example of that in the UI in a minute. Now we're going to start looking at the new features that we released for AI Center in our 21.4 release. The first of which is the new models that we've made available out of the box. For those who have been using AI Center, you would have seen that we had a text classification model for English, we had a text classification model for French, and one for Japanese. Now we have a new multilingual text classification model that allows you to train a custom text classifier on over 100 different languages. We also have a new time series model for forecasting. So it's based on a univariate time series. So basically, you are evaluating one particular metric. That could be, for instance, you're monitoring a network router over time, and that network router outputs some logs, and if those logs start to change, then it may be that, or you anticipate that those logs are going to change and the router is going to go down, that can be forecasted in advance, passed to an ITSM system, and maybe some automatic preventative maintenance is kicked off. We're super interested to see how our users are going to use this model. We've had a lot of interest in forecasting in general, and this is our first attempt at releasing something for forecasting. So really want to know your feedback on how useful this is and what improvements you want to see in the future. The second thing is automatic retraining. I'm going to touch on that in more detail in a few minutes. If you're using AI Center on-prem, one issue that you may have seen for especially our document understanding models is you train our document understanding model in one environment, maybe in your dev environment, and you want to move that to production. And before, you had to just train a new version of the model again in the production environment, because we couldn't move the models between the ML packages between environments. But now you can for our on-prem version. If you're training a model, now we automatically populate the parameter settings. So every model will have its own particular customizations, similar to every activity that you see in Studio. If you look at the property pane in Studio, it always has custom properties. Models are the exact same. So now whenever you're training different types of models, especially our out-of-the-box ones, you will see all of the custom parameters that you can change based on whatever your use case is. So for instance, maybe for a tabular model, you want to enable early stopping. So if the model's not really improving when it's being trained, the training will stop instead of trying to optimize for small incremental improvements. We also have the new disaster recovery capabilities on-prem, so that if your AI Center cluster goes down, you can continuously snapshot the cluster, and if it goes down, you can restore it so that you have close to no data loss, which is super important for enterprise production usage. You can also now more easily manage your inactive ML skills by setting auto deployment policies. And finally, you can deploy ML skills as REST APIs. And what that means is, and this is a super important feature, let's say you have your orchestrator on-prem, but your organization doesn't want to make the infrastructure investment to bring AI Center on-prem, and you want to be able to use the elasticity and compute power of the UiPath Automation Cloud. So you train your model and you deploy it on AI Center running on the Automation Cloud. You then choose to make that ML skill public, which will mean that you generate a HTTPS endpoint for that ML skill along with an API token, so that you can use that in any one of your environments. So you're essentially decoupling the ML skill from any particular orchestrator tenant. So diving into automatic retraining, we now are able to continuously automate the learning loop within our platform. And that starts with sending validation from the robot to a human. In the case of document understanding, for instance, the ML skill may try to extract information from an invoice. It's not confident. There are some fields in the invoice that it doesn't recognize. So the robot sends that to Action Center. The user opens up Validation Station, makes the validations for the fields that the prediction wasn't confident of. And then that validation is automatically sent back to AI Center as new training data, and you can automatically set up a recurring training pipeline so that whenever that new validated data is coming in, automatically there'll be a new training job kicked off, which will result in an improved model because it's able to now predict those things that it couldn't before. And then you can also now automatically update the ML skill whenever there's a new ML package version available without any downtime. So this is incredibly powerful because we are doing end-to-end automation of the learning loop. The next new feature that I wanted to do a deep dive on is our new capability to make an ML skill and the data set available as an API. So why is this important? And let me just move over again to the AI Center application to show you an example. So you'll see here that I have deployed this ML skill, and you'll see that I've chosen to make this ML skill public. And what that means is whenever you check this, that the ML skill will produce a URL that you can copy, as well as an API key that you can use to authenticate the request. So now, instead of having to access only the ML skills available on your particular tenant, maybe my robot is connected to an orchestrator tenant I'm running on-prem, but I don't have AI Center on-prem, and I'm using AI Center in the automation cloud, I can still use that ML skill within my workflows with this feature. And how we do that is if we go to Studio and we drag and drop our ML skills activity into a workflow, and I change my default connection mode is the robot, so it will just search for the skills available, and this is the tenant that I'm connected to, so I'm able to get those two. But let's say I'm connected to a different tenant or no tenant at all, then I can just use the endpoint connection mode, and I can simply copy and paste the URL and the API key. And then I'm able to connect to the ML skill. I'm sorry, I need to put those in quotes, of course. I'm able to connect the ML skill just as I would any other. And that the real power of this is that now I can use ML skills deployed in one environment across any of my other environments. And if you want to, you can even use the ML skills outside of our platform altogether, and maybe in some custom application that you've built. Again, touching on this, before you had to manually put in these parameters you would have to go to our documentation, see which parameters you could customize for each ML package. Now it's entirely automated. Now you're going to see these parameters automatically populated with default values that you can customize if you want to, such as the OCR that you're using for document understanding, the number of epochs that you want to run a model for, and whether you want to enable automated retraining, etc. And I've touched on a lot of this stuff. What we've done within the first half of this year has been super exciting. What's coming next is a collection of, I would say, very, very important improvements, mostly around how easily we can make AI Center available and accessible to our users. The first of which is we are very, very excited to launch our community edition that will be coming later this year. AI Center isn't available for community users. This is something I'm very passionate about, because I'm passionate about enabling our community as our evangelists and as the source of ideas and improvement for our products. We'll also be getting our SOC 2 certificate, Type 1 certification for cloud, so that our customers feel more comfortable with putting their data on our platform. Being able to migrate between a single node and a multi-node instance of AI Center, being able to deploy on your own Kubernetes cluster. And this just will mean that AI Center will be accessible anywhere that you have Kubernetes, which will make it, again, so much more accessible and scalable. We're now available as of this month in 5 different geos in the automation cloud, which is the US, the EU, Australia, Canada, and Japan. We'll take our continuous learning capabilities, automatic continuous learning capabilities on-prem, and hopefully we'll be able to fit in some other cool features between now and 21.10 as well. So if you want to learn more about AI Center, the first thing that I would recommend that you do is take our Academy course to familiarize yourself with it and how you can use it. We've also got tons of documentation that can help you. We've got blogs that are super useful that we can share with you, videos and case studies and loads of content, so that, number one, you can familiarize yourself with AI Center, and number two, you can bring this to your own customers, either external or internal, to get them excited and let them understand the power of AI plus RPA and what it can bring for you. So with that, I'm going to pass back to Tejas.
Thank you, Anton. This was the most anticipated session of the day. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next one.